Talking today to Toby Shapshak, who is the editor of Stuff magazine and is also writing a book on innovation in Africa. Toby, you're a man who looks at more devices and more handsets than probably almost anyone else on the continent. What's happening in the world of handsets that's relevant for Africa and will change the way that people use either their phone or other devices?
Well, I think what we're starting to see is the evolution from feature phone to smartphone. I think it's being a little bit overstated at the moment, and the traction isn't happening quite as fast as people are expecting it to. But that's what you're starting to see as the demand grows, the economy of scale grows. The fact that you can get a reasonably priced smartphone is a very good.
And what, in your terms, is reasonably priced?
Well, it really needs to be under $100.
Yeah.
If the average selling price of a Nokia feature phone is about 30 euros, you really need to come in down. But a lot of the networks are willing to subsidize the smartphones because they know that the data usage is going to be much higher. Unlike BlackBerry with a capped unlimited data bundle, a smartphone will be able to use more and more and more, and of course that's attractive to the operators. But for the people using it, they get access to so many things that you simply couldn't with a feature phone. You would have a very limited mobile internet experience. On a smartphone, you can do a range of things you simply can't. You can download apps, you can check Facebook, you can check Twitter. This recent Twitter survey that's shown how much Twitter is being used is a demonstration that if people have access to the technology and access to the means, that they're going to use it.
So how many Twitter users are there?
Twitter has about 1 million users in South Africa, and Facebook has somewhere over 4 million. And it's quite interesting because if you look at the overall numbers, South Africa has 48 million people, of which 8.2 million have internet access, and about half of that have broadband access. If you look at the number of cell phone users in the country, it's around 40 million plus, depending on how you break up the numbers, because people could have a phone as much as they could have a 3G card, or they could have two phones. So 4.8 million Twitter users or thereabouts means that most of them are accessing it on their mobile devices. In fact, Twitter in Africa, according to a recent survey done by Portland and Tweetminster, found that 60% of people access Twitter on their mobile device. And I think it's an appropriate service for a mobile device.
Yeah.
This is a mobile-first continent.
Yeah.
People have a cell phone where they probably never had a computer and probably never will have a computer. And in fact, the sales of smartphones now outnumbers the sales of PCs in the world, and I think we're going to start to see that in Africa as things get cheaper, and as you see the Chinese manufacturers bringing in cheaper handsets running Android. The attractiveness, the availability of the devices from two perspectives. Firstly, from the cost of the device alone is much more attractive, and secondly, the operators are starting to introduce, especially in Kenya, much more aggressive data bundles to go with the device.
And what will happen to the feature phones and the basic phones that will make any change to what they are able to do in the coming period?
Well, I think they're going to get more sophisticated. They're going to adhere to their original strategy, which is to be as simple and basic and battery saving as possible. What is the best selling device in the world? It's the Nokia 1100 series phone. Good battery life, FM radio, and a built-in torch. I was at a friend's house on a Saturday night, and a geyser burst, and the plumber arrived, and he didn't have a torch. He had the torch on the end of his cell phone. And that people who live in an urban environment don't stop for a moment to think that if you're living in a rural environment with no electricity, a long battery life and a built-in torch is a godsend.
Yeah.
So I think those kind of devices are going to get more smartphone-like features. The Nokia Asha range, for instance, is an overt attempt to blur the feature phone and the smartphone market. They really want to be able to do that, have different features available on a feature phone. I don't think they're going to go away entirely. There's a vast amount of people who aren't literate but are numerate, so they can work with a cell phone, and they live in an environment where having a phone with a long battery life in it, that kind of situation is ideal for them.
So what other devices are there that will play into the kind of connectivity mix going forward 3 to 5 years? What about sort of tablets or MiFi devices, those kinds of things?
Well, I think the tablets are going to start to play a bigger and bigger role, and not the glossy top-end iPads, Samsung Galaxy tabs. That really is the top of the market. For the mass market in Africa, you're going to see a lot more of the cheaper Android tablets. There's a very interesting product in South Africa called the Net Surfer Touch, designed specifically for the kind of environment here. And what they're looking for is much more smartphone-like or cell phone-like features, the ability to run USSD, built-in modem so that you don't need to look for Wi-Fi, and a very cheap entry-level price for the device.
And what's a cheap entry-level device in dollars?
This one's selling for 2,000 Rand.
Okay, what's that in dollars? Approximately.
But I'll tell you exactly. About $260.
Okay. So you were showing me earlier this MiFi device that you have, and how does that work? And
well, it's a very clever device because it's like a 3G dongle that you would plug into a computer, but what it does is it picks up the signal via 3G, but it has a little Wi-Fi antenna, so it distributes it using Wi-Fi. So you can connect up to 5 devices. It's got its own battery that lasts up to 5 hours. So suddenly you have connectivity not just to plug into one laptop, but you can connect multiple people. Very, very handy thing. And of course, because it's just purely a modem, it's got a higher gain antenna, so it picks up the 3G signal, perhaps better than some smartphones might. Very, very handy device.
And what's the cost of that?
This cost 1,200 Rand at the time.
Okay.
I'll tell you that in dollars, but it's about $160. So it's quite handy because it gives connectivity to multiple people. So if you've got a home with a laptop and a tablet and a cell phone and whatever else, you can use this. And as you know, the packages that go with a SIM card are so much better.
Yeah. And what are the uses that will come on stream once the data prices are right? What do you think the point of transition is to things like downloading?
I think we're going to start to see the same kind of data uses as happened with computers. Suddenly people are aware of what they can do with a phone. They can watch YouTube, they can look at Facebook, they can do e-commerce. So when people become more familiar with the kinds of things one can do with the internet, you start to see that. The projections are that 60% of data will be video downloads. I mean, that's already the case with YouTube. YouTube is an obvious thing that people are going to want to watch on their phones.
And how much are people doing that already, do you think?
I think where they can afford to, and they're conscious of it, they do. I think people are very specific about not running their data bills up. I think in a South African context, people are just paranoid because of the horror stories of massive data bills and overbills. I mean, the easiest way to do it is to buy a package of data. I spend 150 Rand a month on a 500 meg package that I manage not to use up all of. I use data slimming apps that kind of compress the data and make it a bit easier, a bit like Opera Mini does. It pulls a compressed version of the file down or the web page down. And when cost is an imperative, people get very creative.
But what are the operators doing, given that they know that their customers have these kinds of fears? And it's throughout the continent. It's not just here in South Africa.
I think they're pushing data packages. So instead of buying data out of bundle, they're pushing a bundled package. So it's an opportunity to upsell an additional bundle. I think what's really needed is just a bit of education when no one understands that a YouTube video is a 5 meg or a 10 meg download, but that's really what it is. how much email goes into it. It's kind of strange because you don't sell internet access like that on any other platform. You don't say to someone a gig of data through an ADSL line is X number of emails, even though that's in the very beginning when South Africa was selling capped internet bundles. That's how it had to be done to give people some sense of it. So I think they're in a bit of a bind trying to educate people what is available, what you can do with it, and what it's going to cost you.
Toby, thanks for talking to me today.
Pleasure.